Welcome back to another episode of the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the wintry and almost snow-like confines of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. This episode will be titled Episode 159, Eagles End of Season Review. I'll be recapping all the things that happened after the Eagles' devastating playoff loss to the San Francisco 49ers. End of season, meeting between the coaches and the GM, end of season press conference that they had, they little tidbits, offensive coordinator search, just my thoughts and opinions on everything. So definitely want to, touch on all of this. Happy to be with you guys. Hope you guys are safe and staying warm through all of this. And I hope you guys are definitely watching and tuned in with me because I definitely got a lot of things to unpack on this episode. But before we do, I definitely want to give a shout out to several friends of the show. As you guys already know, it's playoff football right now. Conference championship is tomorrow. Some of you guys watching this may still have a chance to get tickets and may want to get out to see the game. I implore you to definitely check out the link in the description box of this video. You'll also see it on screen from StubHub. Also, Super Bowl tickets, big games also in a couple weeks. You definitely want to get to it if you're potentially, a fan of the four teams left in the conference title games, or you're just thinking about just getting to a big game, just having a great time with friends and family. Definitely check out the Creative ID link in the description box of this video. And for my Viagogo subscribers looking to get into the concert mode instead of sporting mode, come see some of the top acts. I definitely implore you to check that link out in the description box of this video. As for computer safety, if you guys are looking to defend your computer and your work or home PC against, malware or potential, anything ill that can happen to your computer, I implore you to check out Malwarebytes. Huge offer right now for first time people signing up, so definitely check that out. That will also be a link in the description box of this video. And last but not least, for my avid gamers out there, Sony has a huge promotion right now that you will see on screen. I implore you to check that out. Sony PlayStation, more than a game. All right, guys, so getting really right into it. What the fuck, man? I mean, like I said, devastating loss against the San Francisco 49ers. The Eagles pretty much went into that game. I did a recap video. I implore you to check it out previous to it. Touched on the things that the Eagles needed to do. Obviously, they didn't. That's why they're home. The Eagles lost the game 23-19. It was a windy day. Devastating news before kickoff that they didn't have Lane Johnson. Didn't even really need Lane Johnson to win this game. They just didn't execute on certain plays, and it was devastating. Heartbreaking to watch. And obviously that final sequence with that horrible play call by, Patullo and Sirianni. You guys see it here on the screen of that wide shot, where Hurts was throwing the ball to Goddard. It just really didn't look good. Just wasn't a good formation. Didn't like exactly what Philadelphia was drawing up throughout the game. AJ dropping the ball, Smitty dropping the ball. Offense just out of sync. I mean, outside of Saquon, who had a 100-yard game, but the offense just looked very much out of sync. It just all led to a lot of things where we just kind of felt like this team wasn't going to really be back intact going into 2026. There has to be some changes, especially at the offensive coordinator position. They're definitely, you can't think that when you lose a game of that magnitude at home and your offense has been stagnant throughout the year, or it's had moments of, great play and then moments of just stagnation like that, there's no way in hell that you can keep that offensive coordinator around. Obviously, they didn't. They got rid of Kevin Patullo, more or less a demotion. I don't want to say they fired him, but they definitely demoted him. Much needed. I mean, Kevin Patullo has been one of the worst offensive coordinators in my recent memory as an Eagles fan, flyeaglesfly. But, it's just one of those things where he literally ran a Madden-style play call generator offense that we all know just inexplicably didn't work. He got out-coached many a times. There's plenty of games where he ran formations that didn't make sense. Obviously, in the playoff game, I've bloviated on it enough, but obviously, there was a second and 18 early in the game, and he runs a halfback draw where the defense has got 8 in the box. I mean, it just doesn't, it doesn't make any sense. That being said, though, end of season press conference between Howieroseman and Nick Sirianni. A lot of things really to unpack there. First of all, I feel like, obviously, that there's a lot of things that, you could touch on throughout the 2025 season that ailed the Eagles. Kevin Patullo being one of them. Jalenhurts, at times throughout the season. AJ Brown not performing up to par. The offense as a whole, just not, Saquon, just offense as a whole, just not playing up to, their standard, their level of play that we've seen them execute not too long ago that led to a Super Bowl championship. So definitely disappointing. However, I think that there's some things that really, really need to be touched on. And I think a lot of it stems from the Diana Rossini article in The Athletic, and some of the fallout from the reporting that happened with, the Eagles subsequently right after that loss to the 49ers. It just seems like right now the team has just had a lot of turmoil. Maybe that's been under the subsurface. And because of the season that they had, because things played out the way they did, they clearly are just in flux. Now, looking at it, I understand that Jalen Hurts is going to definitely take some blame for this. Now, I know in the playoff game, he definitely wasn't, the major factor to the loss. I know that he wasn't really one of the main people that led to the loss, but I think his inconsistent play throughout the season at times has led to these issues and has led to the inconsistency that we've seen from him. To be quite honest with you, I think a lot of it comes from just lack of development. Now, let's just be honest with ourselves. I think that Jalen Hurts has, when you have had so many different offensive coordinators in the NFL, and you've played at a high level, regardless of who has been your offensive coordinator, and just all the shit that you've dealt with, you got to give this man credit. I mean, ultimately, he's been highly successful with all the inconsistency that he's dealt with at the position. Consistently having a new offensive coordinator, the offense being so successful that a guy is going to get a head coaching position winning with this offense. Obviously, Shane Steichen, Jonathan Gaynor on the defensive side. Kellen Moore just happened to a 2024-25 season. He wins Super Bowl and then becomes a Saints head coach. So there's a track record where guys become head coaches winning in it with this offense. So the reality of the situation is you have so many different offensive coordinators. I think some of this is a bit overhyped media shit because where is the development coming from? When you have so much inconsistency, when you're especially a quarterback, and I've had people say, well, he's year 5, he's a professional. Absolutely. I'm not absolving him of shit. I think he has to throw the ball better in the middle of the field. I think he has to be quicker on his release. I think his decision-making has to be better at times. But I've always made the assessment that when he's assertive and he's just aggressive, he makes better plays. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league when he's playing like that. He just doesn't play like that consistently enough, and that's what's frustrating. However, if I'm looking at it now, right, and I'm sitting in hindsight saying all of this, but I'm like, but you've been to 2 Super Bowls with him. He's been a Super Bowl MVP. He's been an MVP candidate, and your team's made the playoffs every year he's been a starter. It's a mute fucking point. It's a mute fucking point. It's really nothing to discuss. It just is something that the media wants to harp on. But again, let's discuss it. Let's dive into it. The offense has been through so much shit. We know damn good and well going into this year, they need a good offensive coordinator. Howie Roseman pretty much has addressed it as much. I mean, he said, there's a chance that you're going to get a guy to come in here and it's going to be possibly maybe 1 year. He has success and he moves on. I don't think that's great. But however, if you're winning Super Bowls, no one gives a fuck. Let's be real, Bird Gang. If we're winning championships and you have to change your offensive coordinator out every other year, is that really the worst thing in the world? No, it isn't. No, it isn't. And that's what they've had to deal with so far in these past 5-6 seasons. So credit to Howie and the Eagles for figuring a way out. But Jalen has to develop within that passing game. And having Dallas Goedert there, it's just kind of startling because you would think he would be better in the middle of the field. But he's not the only culprit. One of the other culprits that I think played a huge factor into the Eagles not reaching their full potential this year was ajbrown. Well-known, well-documented, ajbrown had talked about not getting the ball, spoke about, being put in situations where he felt like the team just was trying to put a Band-Aid on things and it just wasn't going to fucking work. Prophetically, omen could have been stated at that time. He said it. He was right. However, if you would have said that he would have been one of the reasons, nobody would have believed you. I mean, I'm not going to pick on him. I've obviously at length went on about the Chargers game where he just completely shit the bed. Dropped the game-winning touchdown. We wouldn't even had to have went to overtime had he caught that ball. And And then obviously, he bitched about the ball. He gets the ball. He has several 100-yard games. No complaints throughout that whole time. Then all of a sudden he stops getting the ball. He goes over 1,000-yard season. He's out the last game of the year. Then he gets into a playoff game and he's not playing well. And then all of a sudden we lose. He has to blow up with Sirianni on the sideline. He's not talking to the media, hugs teammates, tells them he's out, via Jimmy Kopinski of Philly.com. And then pretty much that's that. Didn't like the look. Especially from one of your captains. That's not a good look. And that's not a good look. And you're talking about a 2-3-star captain on your team. Definitely not a good look. I've played, like I said, we've all been frustrated. We've all had games that we definitely didn't want to lose. Moments in time where we felt like we should have won. It definitely didn't play or work up to the standard that we should have been. But you got to be man, and own that. You can't sit there and talk shit about how the offense isn't working. And then when you're getting the ball and the offense isn't working, it's fine. But then when, the offense is working and you're not getting the ball, it's a problem. And then you're just not playing well. And then now it's really just a clusterfuck. So A.J. Brown definitely has a lot of culpability into that. Then there's reports come out that about, A.J. Brown asked for a trade early in the year, which kind of coincides with Joseph saying, Quilto. I'm probably butchering the man's name. Please forgive me. But he drops a report about a week or so ago saying that, A.J. Brown asked for a trade early in the year. I'm not even saying that's not true. I believe that. And I only believe that because I'm listening to how Jalen, it was the Jalenhurts touchdown pass to A.J. Brown in the Minnesota Vikings game. If you guys remember, listen to what A.J. Brown was saying in the end zone celebration when the microphone caught it. Throw me the fucking ball. Give me the fucking ball. We all interpret that as, he was talking to Jalen. I think now we're starting to realize after the Patullo dismissal, after some of the things that have been discussed and have transpired, I think obviously some frustrations happened with Jalen, but I think a lot of this frustration was dealt with coaching. And I think coaching has to wear a huge emphasis and hat for why some of these problems happen. Nick Sirianni has to wear the blame for some of this, obviously. You brought Kevin Patullo in. He clearly was not ready for the position. Clearly was out-coached. Clearly didn't know what the fuck he was doing. And that's twice now that you've put guys in that position that clearly weren't ready. And hell, let's be honest, in all fairness, Brian Johnson's offense was better than this. I mean, the Eagles are ranked 19th in offense under Kevin Patullo. They were ranked 7th with Brian Johnson. So clearly, problems were afoot. But take it a step further. Howieroseman has asked in his end of season press conference if they're going to get rid of Jalen Brown, excuse me. Think of basketball. A.J. Brown, excuse me for that. If they're going to get rid of A.J. Brown and if this is going to be a move that they're going to, potentially make, is this something they're thinking about? And I think Howieroseman's quote, to it ultimately said a lot, where he ultimately said, it's hard to find great players in the NFL, and then A.J.'s a great player. I think from my perspective, that's what we're going out. That's where we're going out and looking for when we go out here in free agency and in the draft. And it's trying to find great players who love football. And he's that guy. I think that would be my answer. So basically what that means under the subsurface is we're not taking that cap hit for trading him. A.J. Brown's not going anywhere. And honest to God truth, unless you really wow us with an offer, he's definitely staying in that uniform. Which again, if the Eagles try to trade A.J. Brown before June 1st, you're talking about a $44 million cap hit with no savings. Something that would have to be after June 1st. I don't see the Eagles making a move like that, of that magnitude in June. If they're going to make a move like that, that's going to be within the next 2 to 3 months. Excuse me. So I think a lot of people have asked my opinion on this. I think you can put that to bed. I don't think A.J. Brown's going anywhere unless the Eagles are really wild with an offer to really make a move off of him. Potentially high draft picks, a great player in return. I've even seen people do the poll, should the Eagles trade A.J. Brown for Max Crosby? Hell fucking no. Hell fucking no. Hell no. I mean, hell, A.J.'s still younger than Max Crosby. So it's like, yeah, no, you don't, no. So be that as it may, a lot of other questions that was asked to Howieroseman as well. One of the things that I think Howie definitely took responsibility for too was how he handled the 2025 offseason. Not bringing back guys like Isaiah Rodgers, not, bringing back Darius Slay, and in all fairness, it was time, You saw Darius Slay still getting injured, towards stretches at the end of 2024. You saw that there was periods and moments where it was like, okay, it makes complete sense that where they wouldn't have to possibly get off of him. There was no proper replacement. You didn't have a proper replacement for Isaiah Rodgers. So it really looked bad. It really looked bad on Howie's part. I know that his whole thing was that you can't keep everybody, I believe the quote here was, as you get better, you have a natural arc of a team. I think that when you look at our team, we drafted a lot of offensive players. We re-signed a lot of offensive players. Then we drafted a lot of defensive players that were young on rookie contracts. There's natural transition in what we do. I'm not making an excuse or anything, but there's a natural transition in that in terms of what you're paying guys, which side of the ball you're paying guys who are coming up. So in English, what that's saying is, hey, listen, early on I made the commitment to pay the offense. The offense got paid and re-signed. Now I drafted a bunch of young guys on defense to work out. Now I have to work out on re-signing these guys. We're making the art on paying the defense and probably cutting back some money on the offense. Yeah. So I can see where people are thinking like, maybe they make a move here or there, but no, it's just, Howie naturally telling you that down the line within the next couple of years, he's going to have to come off some of these offensive guys or make some adjustments contract-wise because you're going to have to keep Cooper DeJean. Excuse me. You're going to have to keep Jalen Carter. You're going to have to keep Quinyon Mitchell. Hell, you have Reed Blankenship as a free agent this year. Does he get re-signed? I think so, but, it's a legitimate question. You got Jalen Phillips out there. You got Nakobe Dean out there. There's a lot of guys that the Eagles are not going to be able to sign and re-sign, so it's going to be interesting. I'm not sure what the thought process will be. Howie went on to say the important thing for us is that there are players that we can't lose. I mean, obviously we're going to do what's best for us, and we want to keep players around here because they're really good players, homegrown players that are really good people that are part of our core. So essentially, the replacement theory is in. You lose Josh Sweat, you get Jalix Hunt. Thank God for Jalix Hunt. You lose Milton Williams, you get Moro Ojomo. Thank God for Moro Ojomo. You lose Kenny Gainwell, you get Tank Bigsby via trade. However, he's doing a great job of keeping the salary cap down like that. I think Howie's one of the best GMs in football, if not the best. I think he's doing a great job. You got guys that are eligible for extensions going into next year. Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, they're eligible for extensions now. Jordan Davis is eligible for one now. He signed technically through 2026 on a one-year tender. So there's a lot of guys that Howie definitely is going to have to figure out on defense who he's going to be able to keep and who he isn't. I think the key thing, though, offensively is you just really need a coordinator that can come in there and really do the fucking job. That's really got some credentials, that really knows the offense, that really can help these guys accentuate their talents more and really put this offense in a situation where they're not losing games to, teams that they're better than in their first round of playoffs and actually competing again for championships. So I definitely can understand Howie's thought process there. Also, too, I want to give Nick Sirianni, Howie some credit in relation to Nick Sirianni as well. Nick Sirianni took a lot of shit, rightfully so, for bringing in Kevin Patullo as offensive coordinator. I think one of the major things, though, that people tend to forget or people tend to kind of forget as time goes on, Nick Sirianni won a fucking Super Bowl. Nick Sirianni's been to 2 Super Bowls with different offensive coordinators, different defensive coordinators. The one constant has been him. He bought himself some cachet. Now, I think the cachet is going now. Now, funny enough, I do think the cachet is going now. I think when you have 2 seasons where you have a team that's more than equipped to compete for a championship and they lose in the first round, one year in a blowout, this year in a heartbreaking fashion because they clearly were better than the team that they were playing, and they had the turnovers and they had the field position. Yeah, you don't have the cachet to pick your offensive coordinator anymore. You don't know what the fuck you're doing in that regard. So I don't think Nick Sirianni should have the right to pick the offensive coordinator. That's why I think the reports coming out from Diana Rossini and other people saying that, Nick Sirianni and the Eagles are going to allow that offensive coordinator to have full autonomy of the offense. They're going to run that coach's offense. Nick knows the offense is, it's run dry. People know what's coming. It's predictable. You got to do something new. But all that being said, I give Howieroseman a shitload of credit for defending Nick Sirianni. I think Nick Sirianni a lot of times takes a lot of flack because he's not a he's not a Sean McVay or a Kyle Shanahan or how Kyle's Kevin Stefanski's regarded out there as a coach. He's not considered like one of those guys. So and even though he's a leader of men, even though he galvanizes the troops and gets these guys ready for a lot of big and important games, he never really gets the credit like those guys do. And I get it. Play calling, schematics, those guys are, cream of the crop, top notch. He's beating all their asses, but nonetheless, I get it. That being said, they have to pick his offensive coordinators for him going forward. As long as he's the head coach, I think 2 times is enough for you to see that he can't figure out this thing on his own. He can't. But Howie, I think giving him that defense ensured, obviously, his job stability. I mean, the man just signed a contract extension a year ago after winning a championship. So I think that kind of put that to bed. But just to see Howie defend him, and, he went on to say, I would just say with Coach, I mean, I've got a lot of things that I would like to say about Coach and the job that he's done here. I'm incredibly proud of him, but he's shown that when we bring people in, that he's open to doing whatever is best for the football team, i.e. offensive coordinator having autonomy, and that all he cares about is winning. Anything that he's answering here, obviously, is depending on who we bring in, but when we brought in people, he's given them the flexibility to put their own spin on things. So that just tells you right there, Sirianni's open, the team's open. They know exactly what they got to do. They know that they can't keep blowing these opportunities. There's a very short, finite window to win championships in the NFL, and the Eagles knew that they blew one this year. So definitely got to address that. Now, last but not least, who is going to be the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles? My initial pick was Mike McDaniel. I thought that just made the most sense. If he made it work with Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle, what the fuck could he do with jalenhurts, ajbrown and Saquon and Smitty? So that being said, obviously then he takes the fucking OC job with the Chargers, and then still has his name out there in the head coaching window. So be that as it may, that didn't work out. Brian Daboll, someone that they interviewed this past Tuesday. He's a name that kind of floated out there. Then there was a report by Diana Rossini from The Athletic that apparently he's going to take the Buffalo job if he becomes the head coach. If the Buffalo job doesn't open up, then he's going to become the offensive coordinator in Tennessee to coach Cam Ward. I think some of that is, true, but then late last night, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler puts out there in a report, quote, in regards to Brian Daboll, that I'm not totally convinced former Giants head coach Brian Daboll is off the table. There's not much buzz there at the moment. So it's just kind of weird because, then you got another quote from Music City Miracles, which is a Titan-based fan page. It says, how long can Titans wait for Brian Daboll to make a decision? And it's a fair question. The longer Brian Daboll keeps them waiting, the greater the chance the Titans miss out on their top backup options at offensive coordinator. Maybe the Titans grow impatient and go with someone else, but Daboll doesn't get the Bills job, leaving him available for the Eagles? We'll see. So that's the caveat there I think we got to think about. Brian Daboll obviously has some experience with Jalen Hurts, was his offensive coordinator there in Alabama for a year. The guys got to a national championship together, so could definitely see that. Declan Doyle from the Bears, passing game coordinator. Offense coordinator, excuse me, I said passing game coordinator. He's also been allowed to interview with the Eagles for missionary interviews. So I think the Bears kind of knew that he was possibly going to get a job after this year. There's a lot of guys. I mean, Bobby Slowick, not a fan of him, honestly. He was a one-time OC in Houston. Don't really like him too much. He was a senior pass game coordinator with the Dolphins this past year. Now, obviously, with Quinn Ewers playing well and the numbers that Tua is putting up over his career, people tend to think that, that's, attached to Bobby Slowick. Not really a fan. Obviously, there have been some rumors about Cliff Kingsbury. But I think really, it's going to come down to either Daboll or probably Jim Bob Cooter, who's a guy that was actually as a consultant with the Eagles in 2021 during the Shane Steichen run. And, he helped call plays before for Matt Stafford. Not really happy with a lot of those selections. Like I said, my choice was either McDaniel or Daboll. We'll see what happens with Daboll. either way, the pressure is on whoever gets in that position. They already know they have to win. If they don't win, they're screwed. Then obviously, too, you got to give Nick Sirianni credit as well for moving on from Kevin Patullo, admitting the mistake, acknowledging that he has to, get better at making decisions and get somebody in there that can really help his quarterback grow. Because without that, this team can't really progress forward, and then they're going to have to wind up breaking it up. Which again, you have a Super Bowl already, so it's not the worst thing in the world. However, it is heartbreaking because I do believe that you could possibly get 2, maybe 3, with this current iteration of the Eagles. But that's going to do it for this episode, guys. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I love you guys for always plugging in. Stay safe, stay warm, and stay dry out there. Take care, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.